Welcome to Downshift. My name is Matt. This is the 2024 Audi Q8 e-tron. And for those of you that follow the channel, you'll know that last year this car was just called the Audi e-tron. But for 2024, it's got a bunch of upgrades, and now it fits into the more normal Audi naming convention that they're rolling out starting last year with the Q4 e-tron that we tested. So for 2024, there's a bunch of upgrades and a bunch of cool new features. So we're gonna hit the highlights, the best and the rest, starting with the rest. So thanks to our friends at Audi Milwaukee for letting us have a go. All right, I'm gonna level with you here. I had a really hard time finding anything objectively wrong with this car that I could ding it on. But in the interest of being thorough, there are about 4 little nitpicks that I guess we'll talk about. First is you have a tiny frunk. Now, this isn't really a bad thing for 2 main reasons. 1, it's bigger than it was last year and you can still put your charging cables in there. And 2, it's okay the frunk is small because the cabin is so spacious and the rear cargo area is so practical. So a frunk is really just kind of an added bonus. Second is a classic Audi interior fault. They're beautifully designed and brilliantly built, but for whatever reason, they just love gloss black. Maybe Audi has stock in whatever company produced piano black for car interiors, but it's not a huge deal, just keep a microfiber cloth in the car with you for smudges. And third is the rear floor hump. Most ground-up EVs have a flat rear floor, but this uses an adapted chassis from the gas Q8, so you get a little hump. But it's still really spacious, and we'll talk more about that later. And fourth, the trunk load floor is a little high. You do have adaptive air suspension, so you can lower the car a bit to make things easier to put in the back. So I guess you could hardly classify this as a fault. But that's it. With everything going on in this car, those are the only 4 things I could kind of find wrong with it, which means there's a lot of great stuff going on. So let's talk about that. The first thing is price. The Q8 e-tron here is the most affordable of the German electric trio. The Q8 e-tron here in SUV form starts at $74,400 for this body style. Like I said, if you want the sportback with the extra 11 miles or so of range, that's $74,700 to start. So an extra $300 for that one, but maybe it's worth it. But both of which come in thousands of dollars less than the Mercedes EQE SUV, which starts at over $77,000, almost $78,000. And the BMW iX, that's like $13,000 more, and it starts at $87,100. So in a way, this Q8 e-tron is a steal. Number 2, we're going to talk about EV stuff, and this is a big deal because last year's car wasn't exactly as competitive on range and charging speeds as some of the other modern EVs that have come out. However, for 2024, Audi has squeezed more density into the same dimensions of the battery pack, making it 114 kilowatt hours now. Audi hasn't released an EPA-confirmed MPGe figure yet, but I suspect it'll be pretty close to the old car, which got about 80 MPGe. So at the end of the day, you're looking at a much more competitive range figure of 285 miles for this SUV. That's a jump of almost 60 miles from last year's car, which is huge. The more swoopy sportback body design will improve your range by 11 miles to 296 due to aero. And if you really need that 300-mile number, then Audi will happily sell you a sportback with the Ultra package, and those funky wheels have just enough of an impact to get you to 300 miles on the nose. From there, just as you'd expect, all Q8s come with dual motor all-wheel drive, otherwise known as Quattro, and charging speeds have been increased from 150 kilowatts to 170, which means you can charge 10 to 80% on this thing in about 31 minutes. Not bad. And number 3, we're going to talk about the driving experience. This is the place that really shows me that Audi really understands the future of luxury cars. This car only makes 402 horsepower and only does 0 to 60 in the mid 5-second range. But it's far and away the most refined and well-calibrated power delivery of all the modern EV luxury vehicles that I've tested. This isn't an S car, this isn't an RS car, so I don't want my neck snapped whenever I go near the go pedal. That's what other brands don't seem to get yet. They think the only thing that's going to sell their EVs is huge power numbers and violent acceleration regardless of drive mode. No. I bought an Audi because I wanted a true luxury experience, and that's what you get here. The power builds in a more sophisticated way that feels quick and agile without sending you to a chiropractor. There's also adaptive suspension as standard, and you can get air suspension, and that's really one of my favorite things about this. It keeps the ride so supple and so floaty without ever feeling sloppy. This is the best part about the car, the ride. And of course, it's whisper quiet, and there's paddles on the steering wheel to dial on or off levels of regen. I just love that. And ultimately, this is just a better luxury experience. It's a better luxury experience than any gas car, and it's a better and truer luxury experience than you get from the iX or the EQE. So yeah, well done, Audi. And number 4, we're gonna talk looks. And I know that's subjective, but to me, this looks better than either of the Tesla SUVs, and it looks better than it did last year. So here's what changed. Overall, it looks very similar to last year's car, but now we have a reworked front grille that's half open to airflow. The grille surrounds also bleed into the headlights, much like the gas Q8 brother. And just like the little brother Q4, it has e-tron stamped into the lower portion of the grille. And the 4 rings are an updated design to match the Q4. Then there's the party piece of every Audi, the lighting. You can get Audi's digital matrix LED headlights, which project shapes onto the ground to help you navigate at night. Super cool. You also get a small LED bar running the full width of the front on certain trims. And then in your lower bumper area, you have reworked air channels going around the front wheels to help improve aerodynamics and range. But then around the side, you only have one charge port on one side of the car, and it's on the driver's side front fender. And the rest of the profile looks very similar to last year, but of course the new wheel designs are pretty apparent. And your rear design is much the same story, with a very familiar design, but an updated 4 rings emblem to match the grille, and e-tron embossed in the lower bumper. Overall, I think it's a really handsome car, and you also could be handsome this summer with a new pair of sunglasses from Blenders. Link down in the description below for 20% off. And number 5, we're going to talk interior build and luxuries, and stepping in, you're immediately met with a very familiar Audi interior in terms of build materials and luxe features. You're also met with really high-end leathers, aluminums, and woods, and you can get a dash trim insert made of recycled plastic bottles. Nice. You've got typical luxuries like heated seats, they come standard. Your cooled seats are standard on the Premium Plus trim, and you can get massage seats in the Prestige trim. Between those seats, you've got a very deep center console with seemingly endless storage and practicality, and straight up from there you have a nice big pano roof. You've also got a heated steering wheel, and it's got those regen paddles that I love so much, as well as a nice upgraded Bang & Olufsen sound system. The weirdest thing about the interior is the gear selector. It looks like this whole thing would move, but it's just the silver bit on the end. Kind of cool. And then there's towing capacity. All Q8 e-trons are good for 4,000 pounds of towing, which is pretty impressive. Now, I don't know how long or how far it's gonna be able to tow that, but it's a pretty big number for an EV. Not bad. And then there's the rear seats, which are pretty comfortable and pretty big, even for me at 6'1". I've got a couple inches of knee room. I actually have usable headroom even with my hat on. That's pretty rare. I've got dual map pockets back here, dual climate vents, an individual climate zone, heated rear seats. I've got USB-Cs down there, a 12 volt. Of course, I've also got cup holders back here, and I even have a window shade to keep the sun out. Pretty nice. And then we're going to talk about technology, and here's the thing about Audi interiors. They don't slap you in the face with massive showy screens or crazy ambient light shows like you would get in a Mercedes, but everything here is exactly what I personally am looking for in a car that I would use every single day. Everything here is usable and everything makes sense. You've got a 12-inch virtual cockpit that we're used to seeing from Audi with all the cool map features and all customizations. And you have dual center screens. The upper screen is your infotainment and media, and that's about 10 inches. And your lower is for climate and comfort with your fan speed and your heated and cooled seats and etc. And you've got great 360 cameras with augmented reality views and fantastic resolution. And your driver assist systems here are pretty top-notch and comprehensive. And of course, you've got Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. So yeah, this thing isn't crammed with showy gimmicks that are gonna look crazy on a YouTube video, but everything here is exactly, like I said, what I'm looking for in my personal car that I would use every day. And lastly, we'll talk about the trunk. We did mention that the load floor is a little high, but from there, you have a really spacious and practical cargo area. Your seats fold 40, 20, 40, and you can fold them from the back seat here, or from the trunk rather, and you do have grocery bag hangers and party piece. If you lift up the floor, you have a really deep cubby and a spare tire, which is increasingly rare these days and kind of nice to have. So that's it. That's the best and the rest of the Audi Q8 e-tron. As you can tell through the course of this video, I struggled to find anything that I didn't like about the car. It's just good. This Q8 e-tron is functioning on the highest level of luxury and finesse. Everything is calibrated for that extra level of refinement. And I think that's what Audi gets so right with their EVs. They are the truest representation of the future of a luxury experience. So huge thanks to our friends at Audi Milwaukee for letting us have a go. Very impressed with this thing, and we'll see you in the next one.